So today on TOKKANTE, I'm doing a versus video and comparing the very popular Baltic MR01 to the much less popular, or at least much less hyped, Stowa Marine Classic. So why these two watches? They're both dress watches inspired from the late 1930s, both in 36mm, both automatic and both with no date. They're both vintage inspired also, but one has real history, one doesn't. So the Baltic has been enjoying some sort of hype since its original release last year in September, and it was instantly sold out. And is now being re-released and available for pre-order, and again the website crashed this weekend due to a huge demand. It has received overwhelmingly positive coverage from all the watch blogs, most YouTubers, and also on Instagram. And they hailed it as the best value dress watch of its price segment. I mean, really? Now, I'm not saying Baltic is a bad watch, but I want you to look beyond the hype and see what else can be had for similar budget. And does it offer a better value with a real history? So the Baltic goes for €545 and free shipping, but it's a fixed price. While the Stowa goes for €720. So yes, it's more expensive, but excluding VAT, you can get it for €621 plus shipping. And that gets it much closer in price if you order outside Germany. So both watches are sold exclusively directly from the brands. So let's say a few words about the brands first and then look at the pros and cons for each watch, and I'll give you my opinion at the end. Hi everyone and welcome, I'm Ben. So first I just want to say a few words quickly about each brand, Baltic and Stowa, just in case you're not familiar with them. So first, Baltic. Baltic is a French micro brand, started in 2017, and so they're just about 5 years old now. They focus on timeless, vintage-inspired pieces, and that's very trendy now. A lot of other micro brands are riding this trend. So they've been enjoying enormous success within the watch community, especially since the release of the Aquascaf, which is a very heavy homage of the Blancpain 50 Fathom. So they are thought and designed in France. That's very important, thought and designed, but they're actually manufactured in Hong Kong, cases, dials, etc., except movements that, in the case of the MR01, comes from China. The straps are made in France from Italian leather, and then they are assembled and adjusted in France in Besançon. But to me, that's more of a fashion watch brand, right? It's not a real watch manufacturer. They do employ watchmakers, but they just assemble and adjust watches. They don't actually, make anything. I think they do offer the more styling options, and they're geared toward a younger audience, in terms of dial colors and strap colors. We'll talk about that later. They're very heavy on marketing, the way they market and sell themselves. They're all over Instagram, social media, collaborations with One, for example. So there's a big hype that has built up around Baltic, and you can see that when the MR01 was first released last year in September, and it was sold out within a few hours. And now again in January, they are re-releasing it again for pre-order. And it's so popular that the website actually crashed yesterday. So Stowa, on the other hand, is a German watch manufacturer with a history dating back to 1927, so they're almost 100 years old now. So they used to manufacture Flieger pilot watches during World War II, and then also deck watches at the end of the 30s and 40s. So they do have a lot of historical models in their collection now. They went through several ownerships over the years, but now they are part of Tempus Arte, which is a group that's also the owner of Lang & Heine, a very high-end, high horology German brand. So in typical, German fashion or style, they're very low-key, no marketing if you compare that to Baltic, not much presence online, and they're actually quite bad at social media. They are very also secretive, but what you can find about them is that they are built in Germany with Swiss movements, and they actually have their own factories, so that allows them to actually decorate and finish the movements themselves. And in that way, they actually offer a lot more customization than Baltic. So I would say Stowa is a watch enthusiast brand as well, but it's based to me more on substance and not hype. So first, let's look at the Baltic, starting with the pros. So the Baltic MR01, MR stands for micro rotor, and 01 I'm assuming is because of the first one. So it's a dress watch. Definitely it's a dressy watch inspired from the 1930s watches. For example, the Patek Philippe Calatrava 96, and also with the off-center second subdial like on classic watches like the Breguet 7147. But at the same time, it's not a copy, and I think that's a good thing. They've managed to make it into a modern watch, modern dressy watch that appeals to a younger generation, I think, with a younger design, and that they've done that really well. It also has a very good finishing on the dial. You have 3 textures on the dial, and if you look at reviews and articles around, everyone praises the quality of the finishing on the dial. I think Baltic apparently has improved a lot the finishing of their watches with this particular model. Also, it's a 36, so it's very true and faithful to what a dress watch should be, and it wears quite well, and you can also get it on different types of strap or even a bracelet. Now, if we look at the cons, with Baltic, I think one major con is that it's made in Hong Kong with China movement, especially the movement. It's maybe not what you would expect, I think, when you buy a French watch brand. If you really think of it, you're just buying a French strap made of Italian leather. To me, Baltic is more of a design house. It's a French design house, but not really a watchmaker or watch manufacturer. So you have to be aware of this. When you buy Baltic, you're buying a watch made in Hong Kong and China and assembled in France. Okay. Another con, I think, is the numerals and the bezel. They are just a tad too big or too thick for me. And I think it's part of their effort to make it into a more trendy or younger dress watch. But to me, that's more fashion watch than classic. Also, the case finishing is apparently not to the level of the dial, especially the polishing. And you can look at the article from SJX for that. The crown is not the best of crowns. The winding action is not good, and it's hard to use and to pull. And there's also a noisy rattling coming from the rotor. In terms of accuracy, it says -20 to +20 seconds. But they don't guarantee any sort of accuracy here. And then, it's also the reliability, right, of the movement that is unknown. Although Etienne, the CEO from Baltic, has said that they have partnerships for the next 10 years at least with Hangzhou to service and repair them. So that brings us to servicing. Who is going to service this and how much? RJ from Fratello says that it's probably cheaper to replace the entire movement than to spend 1 hour on it by a European watchmaker. So that says a lot about the value of the movement. Also, the watch has an acrylic crystal. In the end, when you look at all those cons, you're wondering, is it overpriced for what you get, right? Because there are actually many watches on Taobao or AliExpress, for those of you who are not in China, that have exactly the same movement for 1/3 of the price. So you can argue that those may not be as good looking and may not have as a good of a dial as the Baltic. But that shows that this movement can be put into a watch that is 1/3 of a price, around $200. So, this is what you get for €545 with a Baltic. Fratello said in its article, it's hard to believe this movement is inside a €659 watch. I think what they meant is that wow, it should be in a much more expensive watch. But I think for me, it's hard to believe because I can actually find this movement in a $200 watch. So you pay Baltic, I think, also for design and partly for the hype. So is this worth to you? I'm not saying it's a bad watch, but is it worth the price that you're paying for it? Only you can decide. Now let's look at Stowa, first with the pros. So with Stowa, you're buying a brand with real history, okay? So it's fully designed and manufactured in Germany with movements from Switzerland, and you get a German seal of quality of manufacturing, okay, not from China. They're also using, with this model, if you get the base model, a Sellita SW200, which is known for being reliable, accurate, and serviceable. In some cases, some people actually prefer them to the ETA 2824 because it has one more jewel. It's also customizable. You can even upgrade the movement finishing. You can upgrade it to a manual wound. You can have a date or no date. So it's up to you. The watch overall also has a great finishing, not just the dial, but also the case. Speaking of the dial, it has this enamel look dial. So it's not enamel, but it looks very good with impeccable printing and real heat-blued hands. The crystal is a real sapphire crystal. And then also the brand, I think, in terms of after-sale service and procedures, is much more established. It's about 100 years old versus a 5-year-old brand. So I think you can expect the brand to really stand behind their product, maybe in a way that Baltic is not able to, even if they want to. So I think you get a very fair price for the quality that you're getting, and you can also deduct the VAT if you're not in Germany. Now, if you're looking at the cons of the Stowa, I think it's in terms of design, it can appear very, very cold, very sterile, even boring, right? Because it's very Germanic. And I think it's also not very unique because it's inspired by the deck watches of the late 30s, early 40s. I'm not going to go into deck watches, but if you know what that is, this is what it is. And it's, in a way, it's maybe a bit forgettable. It doesn't really stand out, and you have less dial options in terms of colors, right? You only have the white enamel look, or you can pay more to get a real silver dial. Now, if you want to get more fancy dials or different colors, you can go with the Entea back to Bauhaus line. This one has more colors, but it's a different style. It's Bauhaus, and it's also slightly more expensive at about 1,000 euro. Another con maybe is that it's made to order, so it's not like you can just order the watch and get it in the mail, within 2 or 3 days. So you need to wait at least 4 to 5 weeks. But to be honest, that's almost a plus for me. But I understand it might be a con for some people. And then you have much less love, I think, on Instagram or social media for Stowa. So you have to be comfortable with that. It's not a watch that's going to get you a lot of attention. So in the end, what do I think? I think Baltic has to be commended for bringing a young, new generation to be interested in dress watches. They've managed to modernize the 1930s Calatrava style to appeal to maybe the Gen Z generation. And hopefully in the future they will be able to manufacture more of their watches in France, so that when you buy a French watch, most of it, maybe except the movement, will be French. So I'm not saying it's a bad watch, I'm just concerned about the value that you're getting for the price that you're paying. To me, the value is not really there. Stowa, on the other hand, is more of an acquired taste. I think that will come maybe after Baltic in your watch collecting journey and after you've learned more about watchmaking. But to me, it's more coherent and it offers more value. And, the Stowa was just one of the options, but if you're willing to go pre-owned, I would suggest you could also buy a used Nomos, and then definitely the Nomos is better than the Baltic. Now, what do you think? Do you agree with my pros and cons and my assessment? Would you go for the Baltic or would you go for the Stowa? Let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. As usual, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.